It began in a small town where everyone knew each other's names, stories, and secrets. Life was simple there. Quiet streets, small houses, and hearts full of unspoken dreams. Among those people lived Armin, a young man with kind eyes and a calm voice. He was known for helping others, though he never asked anything in return. His best friend since childhood was Aisha, a girl who had always been full of laughter and light, even when life was hard for her. They had grown up side by side, running through muddy roads after the rain, sharing snacks after school, and studying together under a flickering lamp when electricity failed. Aisha came from a poor family. Her father worked as a mechanic and her mother stitched clothes to earn extra money. Armin's family wasn't rich either, but they were better off. Still, he never treated Aisha as different. When they reached their teenage years, Aisha faced something that changed her forever. One evening, she was caught in a small kitchen fire at home. Her mother had been boiling oil and it spilled by accident. Aisha tried to save her little brother from getting burned, and in doing so, her arms and part of her face were scarred. The doctors said she was lucky to be alive, but after that she stopped looking at mirrors for a long time. Armand visited her every day at the hospital. He would sit beside her bed, talk about school, about the silly jokes their friends made, and bring her her favorite mango juice. He never once looked away from her scars. He treated her the same way he always did, as if nothing had changed. But Aisha had changed. She had always been brave, but now she carried pain that no one else could see. When she returned to school, people whispered. Some kids avoided her. A few said cruel things behind her back. Aisha kept quiet. She didn't cry, at least not in public. Armand became her shield. Whenever someone made fun of her, he would stop them with a single look. He didn't fight, didn't argue. His presence alone made people step back. Years passed, and the two remained inseparable. Aisha worked hard, always smiling despite her struggles. She wanted to become a teacher so she could help poor children who couldn't afford school. Armand, on the other hand, dreamed of becoming an engineer. They supported each other through everything, but life, as it often does, had its own plans. When they were both in their early 20s, Aisha fell seriously ill. What started as a persistent fever turned into something far worse. Doctors said her immune system had weakened badly. She needed expensive treatment, something her family couldn't afford. Armin tried everything. He borrowed money, asked for help, even took a part-time job after his classes. But despite his efforts, Aisha's condition didn't improve much. She began to spend more time in the hospital, surrounded by white walls and the smell of medicine. Her once bright eyes grew tired, but her heart stayed gentle. Even lying weak on her bed, she'd ask Armin about his studies, about his family, about the world outside. She never complained about her pain. One evening, as the sky turned orange and the last rays of sunlight touched her face, Aisha called Armin closer. Her voice was soft, almost like a whisper. "Armand," she said, "I need to ask you for something, but you have to promise me you'll listen." He nodded, worried by the seriousness in her tone. "After I'm gone," she said quietly, "I want you to find someone who needs love as much as I did. Someone who feels unseen. Promise me you'll give her the life I couldn't have." Armin froze. "Don't talk like that," he said quickly. "You're not going anywhere. You'll get better." She smiled faintly. "You've always been bad at lying to yourself," she whispered. "I can feel it. My time is short, but you have to live. Promise me, Armin. Promise you'll marry someone who deserves your kindness." He shook his head, tears filling his eyes. "There's no one like you, Aisha. Don't ask me that." "Promise me," she said again, her voice weak but firm. His heart ached, but he couldn't deny her. Finally he nodded. "I promise." A small smile formed on her lips. "Good," she said softly. "Now I can rest." A few days later she passed away peacefully. The town mourned her deeply, especially Armin. For months he couldn't bring himself to smile. Everything reminded him of her. The streets they walked on, the park bench where they used to sit, the sound of rain that she used to love. Her absence felt like an endless echo in his life. Years went by. Armand graduated and got a stable job as an engineer. Outwardly, he looked fine, calm, mature, successful. But inside, he still carried the promise he made to Aisha. He often thought about it late at night, wondering what she truly meant by it. One evening after work, he was walking home when he saw a small roadside tea stall. Behind the counter stood a young woman, her clothes simple but neat. She had burn scars on her hands and part of her neck. Some customers ignored her. Some gave her pitying looks. But she kept working quietly, serving tea with a calm smile. Something about her reminded Armin of Aisha. Maybe it was the way she didn't let her scars define her. Maybe it was the quiet strength in her eyes. He found himself visiting the stall often, first just for tea, then for conversation. Her name was Sadia. Sadia told him her story one evening when business was slow. Her family had lost everything in a small house fire years ago. She had survived but was left with scars. Her parents had passed away and she now worked to take care of her younger sister. She didn't complain. She said life wasn't easy, but she was thankful to still have it. Armin listened silently. He couldn't stop thinking about how brave she was, and braver than he could ever be. Despite everything she had faced, she had no bitterness in her heart. She still laughed easily, still believed in kindness. As days turned into weeks, Armin realized something. This was what Aisha had meant. The promise wasn't just about marriage. It was about love that heals, love that sees beyond scars and pain. It was about honoring Aisha's spirit through compassion and courage. He began helping Sadia with small things, repairing the stall, bringing supplies, encouraging her to study again. At first she refused, saying she didn't want charity. But Armin told her gently, "It's not charity. It's friendship." Slowly, trust grew between them. Sadia learned to open up and Armin found himself smiling again, something he hadn't done freely since Aisha's death. But deep inside, he still carried the question. Could he really keep the promise he made that day in the hospital? Could he truly give his heart again? That question stayed with him every time he looked at Sadia, every time he saw her courage and kindness. The answer, he knew, was coming closer with every passing day. And as the moonlight touched the quiet town that night, Armin looked up at the sky and whispered, "Aisha, maybe this is what you wanted me to find, someone brave enough to live without fear, someone like you." Weeks turned into months, and Armin continued to visit Sadia's tea stall almost every evening. It had become part of his life, a quiet moment at the end of busy days. Sadia would always greet him with a smile, even if she was tired. They would talk about small things, the weather, her sister's studies, or how the town had changed. Armin admired her strength. Life had not been kind to her, yet she never complained. She faced every hardship with quiet courage, the same kind that Aisha had once carried. There were days when Armin saw a reflection of his late friend in Sadia, not in her face or voice, but in her spirit. One evening, Sadia was closing the stall when it began to rain. The streets emptied quickly and she struggled to cover her cart with plastic sheets. Without thinking, Armin ran to help her. Together they secured everything and stood under the small shelter, drenched but laughing. For the first time in years, Armin laughed without the weight of sadness pressing on his heart. After the rain stopped, they sat on the bench nearby. The night was cool and a soft breeze brushed past them. Sadia looked up at the sky and said quietly, "Sometimes I think life tries to wash away our pain, like rain washing dust from the streets." Armin looked at her. "Maybe you're right," he said softly. "Or maybe it gives us rain so that we learn to dance even when we're soaked." She smiled at his words, her eyes glimmering in the dim streetlight. That smile stayed in his heart long after he went home. In the following days, their friendship grew deeper. Armin would bring her books and help her study during the quiet hours of her work. She had always wanted to complete her education, but never had the chance. He encouraged her to dream again. Slowly, Sadia began to believe she could do something more with her life. One afternoon, when Armin stopped by the stall, Sadia wasn't there. Her younger sister told him she had gone to the hospital because she had been feeling unwell. A sense of worry filled his chest. Memories of Aisha's hospital days came rushing back. Without hesitation, he went to the hospital to check on her. When he reached, he saw Sadia sitting by the window, her face pale but calm. She smiled faintly when she saw him. "You didn't have to come," she said. "I had to," Armin replied gently. "You look tired. Did you see the doctor?" "Yes," she nodded. "They said it's just stress and lack of rest." "I'll be fine." Armin sighed with relief. "Then promise me you'll take care of yourself. You do too much alone." Sadia looked at him for a moment. "I'm used to it," she said softly. "When you have no one, you learn to depend on yourself." Her words struck his heart. He thought about how she had carried so much pain quietly, For the first time he realized how deeply lonely she must have felt all those years. He spoke after a pause. "You're not alone anymore, Sadia." The room grew silent. She looked at him, searching his face as if trying to understand what he truly meant. Days passed and Sadia recovered. She returned to work, but something between them had changed. There was a warmth, an unspoken closeness. The townspeople began to notice. Some whispered about how Armin, an educated engineer, spent his time with a poor tea seller. But he didn't care. He remembered what Aisha had told him, to find someone who needed love as much as she did. He had found her. Still, Armin didn't rush. He wanted to be sure his feelings were real and not born out of guilt or memory. Every night he sat by his window thinking of Aisha. Sometimes he spoke to her in silence as if she were still listening. "If this is what you meant, Aisha," he whispered one night, "then I'll keep my promise. I'll give her the life you wished for me to share." A few weeks later, Armin invited Sadia and her sister to his home for dinner. His mother had heard of the girl who ran the tea stall and agreed to meet her. Sadia came nervously, wearing a simple dress and a scarf that partly covered her scars. Armin's mother welcomed her warmly. During the meal, they talked about Sadia's dreams, her work, and her hopes for her sister. By the end of the evening, Armin's mother smiled and said, "You're a brave girl, Sadia. I can see why my son respects you so much." That night, as he walked her home, Sadia said quietly, "Your family is very kind, but I know people talk. You don't need to defend me, Armin." He stopped and looked at her. "Sadia, I don't care what people say. You've taught me what true strength looks like. You've shown me how to live again." She looked down, her eyes shining with tears. "Why are you so good to me?" she asked softly. "Because someone once taught me that love isn't about perfection," he said. "It's about courage, and you have more courage than anyone I've ever known." A tear rolled down her cheek. She whispered, "No one ever said that to me before." Armin smiled. "Then maybe it's time someone did." Months later, Sadia completed her studies with Armin's help. She began teaching small children in a local school, fulfilling a dream she had almost forgotten. Her tea stall was still there, but now it was run by her sister while Sadia taught in the mornings. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Armin took her to the same park where he and Aisha had once sat. The sky glowed golden and the soft wind rustled the trees. Sadia looked around and smiled. "It's beautiful here," she said. "It is," Armin replied. "And it reminds me of someone." "Someone you loved?" she asked gently. "Yes," he said. "Her name was Aisha. She was my best friend. Before she died, she made me promise to find someone who needed love and to give her the life she deserved. At first I didn't understand what she meant, but now I do." Sadia looked at him silently, her heart beating fast. He turned to her, his eyes full of warmth. "Sadia, you are that someone. You've shown me what bravery looks like. You've taught me to smile again. I made a promise to a dying friend, but now I'm making a new one. To you. Will you let me keep both?" Tears filled Sadia's eyes. She covered her mouth, unable to speak at first. Then she nodded slowly, whispering, "Yes, Armin. I will." In that quiet park, under the soft light of sunset, Armin finally felt peace. It wasn't the kind of love that comes with fireworks or grand gestures. It was gentle, real, and full of respect. When they married months later, it was a small ceremony. The town gathered, curious but moved by the sight. Armin stood proudly beside Sadia, not caring about the whispers, only about the woman who had become his strength. After the ceremony, Armin visited Aisha's grave with flowers. He stood there for a long time, the cool wind brushing against his face. "I kept my promise," he said quietly. "You were right. She needed love, but I think I needed her even more." He placed the flowers gently and walked away, his heart lighter than it had been in years. Sadia was waiting for him by the gate, her hand reaching out to his. He took it, feeling warmth spread through him. Together they walked home, two people scarred by the past but healed by kindness and courage. And though Aisha was gone, her spirit lived on in the love they shared, a love built not on appearance or wealth, but on the quiet strength of hearts that had survived pain and still dared to hope. That was how Armin learned that sometimes promises made in sorrow can lead to the greatest kind of happiness, the kind that never fades, even when the people we love are no longer there to see it.